Hey, everybody. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live and also YouTube Live and also Facebook Live. Mike's always super
Yikes.
happy that we're on Facebook. But hey, this platform we use
Ecstatic.
streams to all the things. And apologies for wearing the jacket. I went into our office today. And I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's turned the heat on in here in a long time.
Well, I'm in my basement and there is no heat there. Well,
Yeah,
actually, that's not true. I got a little heater under my
but
desk.
that's your fault.
That is a bit of a self-inflicted wound, but setting that aside, it's still cold.
It's your fault.
Okay.
All right. So this will be our very last LinkedIn Live for January. We'll be back next week. Before we get going, a couple of announcements. We do security awareness training every other Friday. And so this Friday is one of those Fridays. And our goal this year is to get 3,000 people through security awareness training. And we're off to a heck of a start.
Yeah.
We have, I think, 80 people signed up today. So you can go to our website, criticalinsight.com, go to events and sign up there. Or you can email me, jake@criticalinsight.com, and I'll make sure that you get an invite. Mike loves. Oh, the other thing I want you to do is if people get examples of really good or bad fishes, screenshot them and send them to me, jake@criticalinsight.com. If you get something full of malware, don't just forward it to me because it won't actually get to me. Hopefully, but hopefully. As Mike says, gullibility has consequences, right, Mike?
Yes, that's what I say, and it's the truth. And it doesn't necessarily just apply to awareness of how nasty a place the internet is either. We have a gullibility problem in this country. Also, speaking of announcements, we're about to publish the healthcare data breach report, right? Isn't that coming out soon? I know I'm recording a podcast with the American Hospital Association later today, but that's on a different topic,
That's
right?
a different topic. Yeah,
I always forget which thing I'm going to be talking about.
Yeah, I just schedule Mike to do thing after thing, and usually I tell him 30 seconds before what he's doing, but he's good at that. So I just say, Mike, talk, and Mike.
I never knew I was going to report to marketing, but here we are.
Everyone reports to marketing.
Eventually.
So the podcast is about difficulties in staffing security in the health sector, and the breach report is an analysis of reported. Well, they're not all breaches. It's anytime there's a records disclosure. So HHS, Health and Human Services, puts up a wall of shame. And what we do is we get all that information from the wall of shame, analyze it, and then talk to people about trends, because the feds won't do that for you. Mike, it seems to be in line with your prediction that cyber criminals are shifting to using records for extortion rather than disrupting network operations. We'll dig into that here after we publish the report.
Okay. Well, speaking of the health sector, there's some pretty interesting data out this week. 33% of third-party data breaches targeted healthcare organizations. Okay, so they're definitely in the crosshairs. Remember our friend the Log4j vulnerability?
Is that our friend now?
No, it was never our friend, but it's being actively exploited against healthcare organizations. And interestingly, CISA says, well, we didn't see this huge uptick that we thought we were going to see, except in healthcare. There was also, and this is sad, a massive records breach with the International Red Cross, which has the potential to affect some very vulnerable people. And doesn't that make you want to fight back? I mean, we talked about what a bad idea hacking back is, but taking the fight to these criminals the way they've gone after our critical services seems fair to me, And what I mean is stealing back the money that's leaving the U.S. I personally know people that want to get into that fight.
I do too. They might even be the same people. We should probably before we get too deep into that and name all of our sources, we should probably get to the other events this week. And what a week. Wow. Russia, seems like these criminal arrests are sort of token criminal arrests. The buildup of the Ukrainian border continues. I hate to say you're right again, but your other prediction is coming true about cyber activism.
Yep.
A couple of stories this week that illustrate how the gloves are coming off for political causes. somewhat to your point about fighting back. And I just did a presentation this week with John Rigi, who runs cyber for the American Hospital Association, and he brought up cyber activism too. So it's a thing.
Yeah, well, it's a thing, right? Activist groups are using their skills to try and change behaviors, and I'm picking my words carefully here, and make more information public that exposes embarrassing truths about groups whose public pronouncements are very different from their private conversations. Okay, so case in point is Patriot Front. This is a group that markets themselves as good, patriotic men of Christ. Well, you know, their internal chats and other information was lifted, I mean, like many gigabytes of information lifted by a group called Unicorn Riot. And then they publish on a site called Distributed Denial of Secrets. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems that old Patriot Front does a lot of planning and then carries out operations to do things like deface community murals, intimidate anyone that doesn't look like them or share their beliefs, you know, at these protests. You know, that's, I mean, it's embarrassing. Does it really move the needle?
Yuck. But that's not the big one.
No, that's not the
trains
big
in
one.
Belarus.
Yeah. So the train system in Belarus is used to transport Russian soldiers. And some people in Belarus do not like that. So a group called the Belarusian Cyber Partisans, so that tells you everything you need to know right there, use ransomware to encrypt the servers that operate the trains. Not everything. They made sure to leave essential service intact, but they're not messing around. And that is clearly an example of this cyber activism for political purposes, right? The US is not immune to this, and I think it's coming. So, you know, we'll loop back on this later and see if this starts to become more than just doxing the pretend patriots.
Okay, changing topics. We got to run through some more things here, and I burned a lot of time off the top yapping. Saw a lot of stories in the blast this week, Mike, about Russian activity around Ukraine. By the way, if you want to sign up for Mike's Blast, go to our website right at the bottom of the homepage. You can see a place to sign up there. Yep. But Mike, Ukraine is like the biggest thing in the world other than the pandemic. You know, how is that affecting things?
Well, I'll just tell you what I read this week. So they did an analysis of the Whispergate attack. That was, remember, they found malware buried in Ukrainian government agency computers, right? And they said, well, they're looking to pull the trigger on this very destructive attack. This stuff is all lying in wait for somebody to push the button. Well, the Cisco Talos group did an analysis of this, and they say that 2 wipers, right, that's purely destructive, are used in these Whispergate attacks. The first one attempts to destroy the master boot record and just knock out any recovery options at all, right? So just like, remember the NotPetya wiper masqueraded as ransomware during this 2017 or whatever it was campaign, Whispergate is not intended to be an actual ransom attempt, since the master boot record is completely overwritten. It is purely destructive.
And this is exactly what that's, I believe, what John was talking about the other day, and this is what DHS and the FBI are warning about in their joint alerts: the possibility of destructive malware hiding behind criminal activity, you know, to cloud the origin and intent, right?
I couldn't say it any better than that. Like these alerts have been saying, you know, don't panic, but prepare. Although I'm not sure what preparation for losing all the master boot records for all the computers would be. I still think the best thing anyone can do is monitor the network for signs that your preventive controls have failed and there is some signal in there of something moving around that's not supposed to be there. You know, preventive controls fail usually because of a gullible user, so please send your people to our security awareness training.
You know, I mean, one of the things we saw Mike, was that with the ransomware in the last year, it usually takes 2 to 6 days, from what gets in the system, beacons around, and then locks things up. Is this the same? Is this also something that's going to take 2 to 6 days for it to get in and find the master boot record?
I would think, because it needs to propagate around internally and make sure that, the really critical resources that help to operate your business, your government agency, your hospital, your water utility, your whatever, are all loaded with this malware, so that somebody can just pull the ripcord and then it all happens at once. So initial infection. And in fact, there are these initial access brokers that are facilitating this entry into here. And then you got to spread inside, because if you're going to effectively knock somebody down, you got to hit a good fraction of their computers.
Sure.
So yes, I would imagine that there are days and days of activity in there setting up for this thing to happen before anything really happens. So that's your opportunity to see it and get rid of it.
Got it. Okay. And not a plug for our company or anything, but we catch things in 2 hours or less.
Yes.
There you go. Okay. Let's move away from nation states destroying all the computers to threats and vulnerabilities, because that's obviously one way criminals and countries take over networks without needing gullible users, which we took care of in the security awareness training. So now there are no gullible users. Everybody has managed detection and response. So let's talk threats and vulns.
Okay, good point. Right? Because that is another way to get in. Lots of things have gone vulnerable this week. But just one more quick note on the ransomware thing and ransomware-like destructive attacks. The gangs are reportedly increasing efforts to enlist insiders for attacks, right? Just plug in this USB stick and we'll do the rest. And the ongoing great resignation and everyone reassessing what quality of life is like, and their work-life balance, and revolting against companies that treat their employees like they're cells on a spreadsheet, are probably at greater risk right now of something like that. If your insiders don't like your company culture and they're looking for the door, they may leave you a present on the way out.
Well, that's definitely a vulnerability, but that's not what I meant by threats and vulnerabilities, Mike. Although, that's definitely one of them.
It is. Okay. So the real things, Polkit, which is a default component of nearly all Linux distributions, is vulnerable, and an exploit has been publicly released. It's really easy to exploit, and it results in root privileges. You have to be an unprivileged user with access, but you escalate privileges easily with this thing, and all of a sudden you're root. McAfee vulnerability can be exploited to gain system privilege on Windows systems. So all versions prior to 5.7.5, I think, of the McAfee agent is at risk. So got to upgrade. This is interesting. Microsoft OneDrive is being used for criminal command and control, right? So malware hits your network and it's got to talk to its command and control. Well, they're now hosting that in OneDrive. So it's some malware they're calling Graphite. Not much can be done there except for Microsoft to monitor and stop that activity when it's identified, I guess. QNAP is warning about this Deadbolt ransomware that's encrypting network attached storage devices. So remember, some weeks ago, QNAP said if you have a NAS system that's facing the internet, you need to seal it off. So if you didn't listen then, you may get smacked now. And one more that's big. CISA has added 17 more vulnerabilities to the list of "you had better patch this now" bad stuff. So that list now has 341 vulnerabilities that all federal agencies are compelled to address. And it's real good advice for everybody else in the private sector and local government, everybody. When CISA says things like this, it's because they have data to back it up. These are the things that are being commonly exploited.
Ooh. Federal government agencies being compelled to do that, I mean, kind of means like they'll likely get after that with some urgency. We work with a lot of local governments and they're aware of that list and the implications. Do you think they're treating it with urgency as well?
Well, the ones that I communicate with regularly, and there's a good handful of those, they know that vulnerability management is the key to survival. What's one of the keys? I don't know if they're aware of all 341 vulnerabilities on the list. But I'm glad you brought that topic up, because I keep seeing and blasting articles about the upcoming state and local cybersecurity grant program that's part of the infrastructure bill, which I guess we can now call the infrastructure law at this point, right? It's passed, it's signed. The small cities and counties don't have the resources to be able to do the assessment that's going to be required to submit a justification and a request for funds. They need help. And so we're spinning up an inexpensive consulting package to do just that. Assess them quickly, develop a list of corrective actions, budget that out for them, and help prepare the request for funds. So more on this later. We'll talk more about this. But just to reinforce the thought, we are in your corner on this because local government is what keeps us all alive and happy.
Oh, we're doing that? You should probably tell marketing.
I'll call him later.
Okay, yeah, maybe he'll take his jacket off. Hey, there are, as everybody knows, whoever watches this, we do at the end a kicker, which is a time when Mike is supposed to make people laugh, and he fails. He is really not good at this. He jumps in
reliably, I think.
He's not good. So I have one. Mike, let me show you how it's done.
I'm all ears.
So there's a woman in Michigan. True story. This is a true story. Woman in Michigan won $3 million in the lottery. They informed her via email. Well, you know what happens when you get an email saying you won the lottery. Right? Is it goes to the spam folder, as it should. So the only reason she saw it is she went hunting for something else that she thought might be in her spam folder. And she was like, won the lottery, ha, 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 clicked on it, and then was like, wait, this is real. Could have been ignored forever. Could have cost her $3 million not to check her spam folder. Just goes to show. I don't know what it goes to show, but check your spam folder every now and then.
Okay. All right. Well, that
was pretty good, right?
That was pretty good. That was better than the one I was going to use, which is, hey, the IRS is going to start using facial recognition for you to authenticate to your account, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard, but it's not funny.
That's not funny. It's
not.
Also kind of funny was this morning I was talking to our head of IT, and he was, he was unhappy with Windows, and I said, I heard Bill Gates puts microchips in computers. All right, everybody.
All right.
All right. So wait, I'm going to try something new here. Watch this. I bet I can show my email address. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Yeah, look. So here's what I want you to do.
Primitive way,
email. Yeah, very good. Email me if you want an invite to security awareness training. Email me if you want to send me good spam you get and ones that say that you won the lottery for $3 million.
Especially if they're true.
Right. And thanks for joining us, Mike. Thanks for being here as always. And funny, I think somebody in this building must be watching this live because the heat just came on full blast. So I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.
What a reach we have.